Center project. And of course, we have with us the director of the Maytown Center project for Tennessee State University, Dr. DPadgett, who is in the Department of History, Political Science, and Geography at Tennessee State University. And of course, Dr. Padgett, let's continue our discussion in reference to the Maytown Center project by having you to give us some information in reference to how Tennessee State University became involved in this project and exactly what is the role that it plays in this, because this is a much larger project than just Tennessee State University and its part.
Yes, well, the project, the Maytown Center, is a mixed-use development that's planned for an area called Bells Bend, which actually is on the bend in the Cumberland River, about 3 miles west of Nashville, of Tennessee State University, actually. This land has been slated for development on several occasions, and in each case, the community near Bells Bend has fought against it. In this latest attempt to develop the area, the May family purchased about 1,500 acres of land a little bit prior to 2008. And they came forward with a plan to develop it, and they met a lot of opposition in 2008. And in fact, the Metro Planning Commission at that point said, well, you probably need to come forward with something that's a little bit more palatable to the community. So the May family hired a developer, and they partnered with Tennessee State University, whereby they would donate 250 acres of the land as part of the Maytown Center project, 200 acres of which would be a sustainable agriculture research park, and another 50 acres would just be a basic research park. And so that happened earlier in 2009. So TSU became a partner with this private developer in developing this project. Now, unfortunately, once again, they were met with a lot of opposition because this land use development would be the largest zoning change in the history of Nashville, probably the largest development in the history of Nashville. And the land right now is zoned basically conservationist agricultural, which means that as it is zoned, you could not build a commercial, corporate, residential project such as Maytown on it right now. So that was the first thing that had to be done.
So that's the council's position in terms of change. You have to change some laws in reference to that. Is that?
Yeah, first they had to go to the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission first had to approve the zoning change, and then it would have to be voted upon by the Metro Council. It never got past the Planning Commission, in part because you had a lot of opposition that sees Bells Bend as this very pristine area. It's a green area. It's a very heavily used area for agriculture. And really the main reason that TSU was brought in is because of our history and our expertise in agriculture.
Dealing with.
And so basically the Metro government said, look, if you're going to develop this land in any way, you're going to have an agricultural partner. And so that's how Tennessee State got brought in.
Involved.
Not used as a pawn, as some people might say, but as a partner because of our agricultural
that has the history
expertise.
Yes, very good.
And so, unfortunately, again, there was still a lot of opposition, and there was a lot of controversy this year, and the project essentially was voted down in June of this year by the Planning Commission. But that isn't the end of it by any means. There still are efforts ongoing to bring the project back in a more palatable form. The big question, again, is whether or not Tennessee State University's research park will be a part of that new vision. Obviously, the Sustainable Agricultural Center will be. There was, that will be part of it if it is developed. But regardless of whether it's developed or not, the May family, who is the primary landowners, they've donated a substantial amount of money, I think $400,000 to TSU in the interim, that will be used by the university in some way. And just some background, the May family has been in Nashville for several generations, and they developed their wealth through a variety of industries, I think mainly in hosiery, women's hosiery, I believe. And so they've accumulated quite an amount of wealth. They like this area, and they wanted to see this development take place. And Metro government also wants to see this development take place, because what we've seen over the past couple of decades is more and more commercial development occurring in Williamson County, in Rutherford County, in Wilson County, and not so much in Davidson County. And so all those tax dollars are leaving, all those jobs, more importantly, are leaving Davidson County. And so this development is seen as a way of bringing some amount of corporate, commercial, and residential interest back into this community, and also jobs. Now, one of the more controversial pieces is that when you develop an area to that degree, infrastructure changes have to be made. You have to build new roads, and particularly there has to be a bridge built. There has to be a bridge built across the Cumberland River to connect it to the rest of Nashville, and that bridge would have crossed at approximately the end of Cockrell Bend Lane, at the end of Centennial Boulevard. And so there's a lot of angst as to how much traffic that would bring. The city later on recommended there might need to be 2 bridges built to connect that property to the rest of Nashville. And so that brought out a lot of the opposition. And so what I'm looking at with this research is, what are the overall impacts, and how do we present a project like this involving a black college and a private entity that would really bring a lot of jobs to this community in a positive light? Because interestingly enough, not all the opposition came from the people who live out on Bell's Bend and the so-called green people. There's a significant portion of the African American community that was seemingly opposed also, thinking that TSU was being used as a puppet or a pawn. There was a period of time when people thought that the students who worked under my research project were being used to work for the developer. There was a lot of misinformation out there that may or may not have contributed to the demise of the project with regard to the Planning Commission vote. But yeah.
And Dr. Padgett, I think we're getting ready for the second commercial break. And when we come back, we want to pick up at that at that very point. But what we're saying now is that the project is still alive and well in a real sense, even though it has some opposition in reference to the Planning Commission. It has not reached the council yet. Is that right?
I'd say it's alive, well. I wouldn't say it's well. It's on life support.
It's life support, but it's still, you believe it's a viable project, and people can change things in reference to the way things are going. And of course, we'll be back with our audience following this second short break.